started breaking at a pretty young age. I want to say I was around like 10 years old. And it all started with my cousin Johnson, really. One day he came over to the house and he was showing my two older brothers, Eddie and Tony, how to do a backspin. From there, Tony and Eddie kind of ran with it a lot more. They started before I did. And it was just kind of that sibling rivalry. When Eddie started high school, Tony and I were still in middle school at the time, he told us about a group of guys that he would practice with, that he met up with at the high school, which was classical. And those guys were the Bai Cha Breakers. After school, me and Tony would go over down the street to classical and we would go practice with them. And you know, eventually we became a part of the group. I think it pretty quickly turned much more into a family. There was a bunch of different places in Lynn that we used to practice at all the time. You know, one spot that comes to mind right away is Club America, which is we're right in front of now. It's a church now. Rest in peace to Frank. He's done a lot for us to just give us a space to practice our craft. The Boys and Girls Club, which was a program that got started for us by Mark Feldman, who was a teacher in the Lynn public school system. Here and there, you know, there would be practices in the classical cafeteria, practices at Lynn English and Lynn Tech have like open basketball courts, and we used to just go and grab a corner and go practice there. Growing up in Lynn as a b-boy, you know, there's a lot of different stages to it. So obviously when we first started off and my older brother Tony and I first started practicing with the rest of the Bai Cha Breakers, you know, we were very naive to the whole game. We were young, this was new, we had no idea what it was. So for us, it was just something to do. It's part of a much bigger picture. Breaking is a part of hip hop, and as you dig deeper into that, you get to a bit more of a sophisticated level with it. You're learning more of the cultural parts of the dance, you know, of hip hop really. We learned the history that Lynn has with breaking, and Lynn has a very rich breaking history. At that time, I was completely naive too. I think one of the biggest influences to me when I started off in terms of, you know, bridging that gap was, at that time he went by the name of Red. He does a lot of work in Lynn now, he goes by the name of Justice Born. So he played a pivotal role in kind of filling us in on the larger context of what we're doing. I mean, because for a long time prior to that, it was the blind leading the blind. And then obviously he was very well equipped and knowledgeable in terms of the overall community in Lynn, in terms of break, not just in Lynn, but Massachusetts, like the East Coast, the Northeast and such. And then we come to learn that, you know, one of the more reputable crews from back in the day is actually from Lynn as well. They're called the Lords of Illusion. To kind of learn their history and learn the stories of what they've done and how they were the ones that put Lynn on the map. Growing up in Lynn in the early 90s and such, like, there was a lot of, I guess we'll just call it negativity. This was a way for you to take all that energy you had built up, whether it was frustration, whether it was pure joy, no matter what it was, you could, you know, let it go through your dancing. But at the same time, it wasn't just letting go of things, it was creating things as well as a dancer. You know, creating your own original freezes, creating your own little maneuvers and movements within your dance, really tailoring the dance to yourself, coming up the way that we came up. It's like we didn't really have anything. To have those original components of your dance, that was almost like your currency. I'm not myself if I haven't gotten a certain amount of dancing done in my week. Too long without it, it almost feels like, you know, you've taken the tree away from its roots. Definitely in way too deep now.